Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town Council meeting. Before we get started, I would like to mention that a local resident recently posted on Town's Facebook that they appreciated the fact that we were live streaming your meetings and that they were hoping that this practice would continue once everything COVID come into line. So for those of you who might be unaware, high-level meetings have been live streaming for the past 2 months, and to great success. A lot of people have tuned in. And as such, our administration is looking into ways that we might be able to continue to do this into the future. So stay tuned to our Facebook page, our social media webpage, and we will update you as we find out whether we can live stream from council chambers. Okay, so the first item of business is the adoption of the agenda. And is there any additions?
Madam Mayor, the administration has no additions to the agenda.
Okay. Do council members have any additions they would like to bring forward?
Nope.
None. Can I have someone move?
I'll move it for you.
Councillor Forrest, all in favor? Carried. Down to approval of minutes. On 10.2, can Anderson or Morgan confirm who made that motion? On page, I don't know. Page 3 of your council package, under the capital project status report, the municipal secretary did not know if it was Anderson or Morgan that made that motion.
I do believe it was Mike that made that motion.
Okay, so there is a correction there to Councillor Morgan. And on resolution 18620, the monthly report, it says moved by Deputy Mayor, but it sounded like Councillor Forrest. Does it, either one of you can confirm those?
I believe it was Councillor Forrest.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Forrest. Is there any other corrections? Could I have someone move then, please?
Brent will move to accept them as presented
Sorry.
with
Councillor
amendment.
Anderson moves with the amendments. All in favor?
Yep.
Carried. My report, I'm getting really lax and not sending these out, sorry. The more I stay at home, the lazier I get. So on May 14th, I worked with Bill Snar, our communications person, to do the first part of the video of Chuck Egg. May 19th, the State of the Region draft report was reviewed. We reviewed that with Lisa Wardley, Amber Bean, Carrie Ungarian, Haley Gavin, and the CMR consultant, Sarah Skeet. We had many comments, like all of us. We had so many changes that we decided to go into a different direction with the State of the Region and have the report done so that it's in more of a graphic form, because there was so much information. We also need to gather information from various areas, because they gathered a lot of the information off of the Alberta dashboard, which we know is not correct. So we have appealed to these various agencies time and time again, and we're appealing again to get the correct data. And we're looking for the data from RCMP from all detachments. We're looking for information, and I believe we have gathered it from the Fort Vermilion School Division. We need information from all of the municipalities, and we need serious information from Alberta Health Services on mental health, addictions, and other areas. So if you receive a request from CMR, please submit. And one of the other things that we found is that across the municipalities, they were not indexing the information the same, so you had to flip all over the place to see. So we're working, not we, but CMR is working on templates to send out to each of the municipalities and areas that we need work so that we can gather information. Because as we know, information from Alberta Dashboard, the government, the federal government isn't the correct information from our area. And I feel probably when businesses and agencies were sent our large want, they just didn't do it. But it's very important. So if you're talking to any of these people like forestry or other businesses, it's important that we gather this information and that it be correct so that we can show the federal government and the provincial government the state of our region up here. And it's important because we'll be using these reports to get grants and things for mental health, for victim services, for all of these types of agencies. On May 19th, after the State of the Union report, we did the Caribou Research Project, and we have 127 of the 150 cameras deployed. One of the areas was too difficult to get to, but the Trappers Association is gearing up in late fall to deploy the North Ridge of Caribou Mountains. Once you get across the ridge on Caribou Mountains, the weather is very different, and they had a difficult time getting in there, and the region isn't actively trapped as well. So we were unable to deploy the cameras as they couldn't break their trails through the snow and everything else. So we're happy to say 127 of them are deployed though. So the sub-regional task force, we discussed that, and we have finished all of our meetings. Consensus has been reached for all the recommendations. It's been sent on up to the government, and the government's plan it will be out for public consultation and input for 30 days during June. Now I think that's pretty fast. I would expect to see it probably later than the 1st of June, maybe the end of July. The end of July was the goal to adopt for cabinet, but I think that it will take them much longer to do the community consultation part. And on May 20th, I went to the Fort Vermilion School Division and did a presentation for our emergency reception multi-use facility. And the board has agreed to work with the town of High Level and the Dene on moving forward with our plan and having it on school division property. And if there's any questions, I will try to answer them. Seeing no questions, could I have someone move to accept my report?
I'll move.
I'll move.
Councillor Jessamine, all in favor? Carried. Deputy Mayor,
Nothing to report.
Councillor Anderson,
On the 23rd of May, I attended via Zoom the Peace Region Systems Library out of Grand Prairie. 3-hour meeting. I see your pain, Crystal, when you talk about sitting on them for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Went well. Not much for changes in their organization with COVID, just kind of the same old, same old. They are waiting for some direction as to when they can start to pick the pace up a little bit, but they are still sending material out to libraries that are requesting it and that type of stuff. So
Okay. Thank you. Is any questions of Councillor Anderson? Okay. Councillor Forrest.
Yes, on March 21st, we had a teleconference with Mackenzie Waste to do with the our financial audit. Everything went very well. The only difference between last year and this year was $24,000, which the accountant said was very good. And other than that, the waste is about equal coming in from last year to this year. And that's about it. Everything else is going very well out there. That's all I have.
Okay. Any questions for Councillor Forrest? Okay, seeing none, I will go to Councillor Jessamine.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Morgan?
I attended the same Waste Commission meeting as Councillor Forrest. That's it.
So, to both of you, I had a citizen come to me and say that in a community that they had lived in, they have a facility inside their waste landfill where it's called Things in Need or something, and it's
Shopping.
Pardon me?
Shopping.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's a facility where if you have a couch that you don't want to really throw in the dump, but you want to give away, that you could drop it off there, and people that really need things, and maybe in scenes these times, they can pick it up and take it home. Or maybe there's a small fee, I don't know. But I just wondering if this is something that the Waste Commission could maybe look at.
Certainly. I'll bring it up over there at our next meeting.
Okay, thank
As a
you.
matter of fact, I'll bring it up on Thursday. As a matter of fact, I'm having a meeting over there with Bruce. And
Okay,
that was discussed before, and I don't know what happened to it, but it was discussed before, eh?
right.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, like I've been making quite a few trips to the dump with my fence, or sorry, the landfill.
It's
And I
landfill,
mean,
yeah.
there's a lot of items there that people are throwing away that, you know, other people could really use probably.
That's right.
Yes, Councillor Jessamine.
They had one of those facilities in the Slave Lake area at the landfill there. It was there for a number of years, and it was really successful. I go to the landfill on a regular basis, and you would see people dropping stuff off, and as fast as it would get dropped off, it would get picked up. So it was a huge success. They had a big Quonset type material structure, and donated by a local business, and yeah, it was a huge success in that at that landfill area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it could be well used. Yes, Councillor Wilkie.
I'll just echo that as well. In Gruard, at the Gruard landfill, there's a small take it or leave it shed, just an open shed concept, so a roof, and there's always items in there that people are coming and going. So it doesn't even have to be a large piece of like a large building or anything. So
Yeah. Okay, that'd be great if you could look into it.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Welke, sorry.
go ahead,
Yes.
Terry.
I had a question for Michael and Councillor Forrest, just regarding in the past with the cleanup of garbage bags and plastic bags outside of the property at the landfill there. They've been cleaned them in the past. They've had students or hired people to clean. What is the update on that? Are they planning to do that this summer, or where are we at with that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we have 2 students hired now doing that.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
there is 2 hired. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Welke, do you have anything to report?
I do. On the 13th of May, I attended the Chamber of Commerce's meeting, and we had a live phone call with Mr. Danny Williams, MLA. He was checking in on the chamber and on businesses just to discuss the phase 1 relaunch of the pandemic plan. So that was a nice call, very quick but nice call. Also, we talked about town cleanup, and I didn't take a lot of notes on that, but it is going ahead. If anybody wants to jump in, if they have updates on what's happening with the town cleanup.
Well, the landfill's going to be free of charge, I believe. Maybe Clark can jump in here.
I'll let Ruth step in. She's been working, her group has been working with the chamber.
Okay.
So good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. We've been working with the chamber, had posters out in social media, and the landfill is open from Tuesday to Saturday this week. There's no tipping fees. That's for all white goods or anything that citizens want to take in. There's not going to be the regular cleanup where people bring stuff to the end of their driveway and pick up and all that. We're not doing that this year. The chamber still has the town into 14 different areas and have been advertising for non-for-profit groups. And we've been working with them on that. So at this point, because it would have just started today, I couldn't say what the uptake is on it, but I'm assuming that we'll be seeing people out there anytime this week picking it up. So
I see them out there today picking up.
Good. Thank you, Ruth. Also, we discussed at the chamber a membership drive for the chamber. All board members are going to solicit businesses for membership. And there was some discussion about approaching members not from the immediate area, especially those that don't have, similar types of organizations or active, business organizations in their communities. So we're going to look at possibly reaching out to some of our neighbors to see if they would like, the businesses would like any support from what the high level chamber would have to offer. Next, I was not able to attend the May 19th FASD Society meeting due to a committee of the whole, but I did reach out to Wanda today just to get some updates to give you guys tonight. And they're moving into the new building, the old Action North building. The expected completion date for the full move and to be out of the Fallman building is going to be June 30th. They are currently still providing full programming with less face-to-face and following pandemic guidelines. Also, there was some known issues with the roof in the new building, which the board has decided to go ahead and fix the whole thing. It appeared earlier that it was mostly in an area that they weren't going to use, but they're not even moved in yet, and they found they're running out of space. So they're going to tackle that whole roof issue now. And then on the 22nd of May, 2020, I just wanted to update, maybe Councillor Forrest can jump in too if he likes this, the Community Futures. We had a Zoom meeting.
Oh, yeah, right. Sorry,
Yeah.
I forgot about
I'll just maybe mention, and then if I'm missing something, Ellis, you can
Yep.
add to it. But the main thing is the Community Futures has been put in charge of managing business relief funds similar to the one that the government, the federal government's offering, the CERB, or I think it's the CERB loan. It's up to $40,000 for qualifying businesses with a pretty unique payback scheme. Only 75% has to be paid back by December of 2022, and if you pay that 75% back, 25% will be forgiven. So this was open to most businesses, and those that were having trouble qualifying now can look to Community Futures for obtaining this similar type of financial support from the government. Does that sound about right, Ellis? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, 2.5 years and 25% is forgiven.
Yeah.
Or else, if they pay it in 5 years, they pay the full amount.
Right. And the only thing is there is a cap of $1 million or so.
The cap of $1 million.
Yeah. So it is encouraged for businesses to to reach out if they feel there will be a little bit of qualifying process and that sort of thing, and community features, we'll look at that. But it looks to be like a very, very good and helpful program for a lot of people. And that's all I have to report.
Any questions of Councillor Welke? All right, could I have someone?
I'm sorry, and the qualifications to get the loan is very good also. They're not going to be going hog wild after you for credit and all that stuff, eh? So it's pretty open.
Okay.
So there's only going to be $1 million given out.
Only.
Only, yeah. That's only 25 people. Only.
All right. Thank you. Could I have someone move council reports, please?
So done.
Councillor Forrest, all in favor? Carried. Actions resulting from committee meetings, council meetings. There's the action list. Is there anything anyone would like to talk about? If not, I will entertain a motion. Deputy Mayor moves that.
Sorry, I guess I can take it off mute. Yeah, I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to put words in your mouth. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Under sorry, 13-1, I will call on Director of Finance, Carolyn Zanko, to speak to this, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, so we received a request from a taxpayer about his penalties or the penalties on the account, and they had requested a write-off of $1,069.97 for Council's consideration. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.
So this is property that the person had passed away, and it took quite a while to reconcile the estate. So these are penalties that were applied to the estate for 2018-2019 taxes. And the taxes were paid in full once the estate had been dealt with. So the penalties are for those periods, and they're asking that we waive those penalties due to the complexity of the estate. Yes.
So based on the information provided, this was the public trustee that had dealt with this.
Right.
So it's not like it was an unsophisticated party that was doing a private probate. In my experience, the public trustee would be more than familiar with the estate property and the obligations of the taxpayer. This was likely an oversight by their office, and therefore these penalties would probably accrue to the province and not to the estate, would be my expectation.
Okay. So what's your recommendation?
In my experience, only in extreme situations has council ever waived tax penalties. Almost anyone who is late has, in their opinion, valid reasons to do so. And in this case, I think that the public trustee's office just fell short.
Is there any other questions of council? Yes.
I would not have been aware of any of that, as Deputy Mayor Langford pointed out. But I guess in my opinion, I would like to be confident that it's not going towards the estate. If somebody else is responsible, then would we just make a recommendation to accept his information and let it linger? How does that work?
I'm not sure how that would work. Well, we would have to make a motion, yeah, to accept it as information. I don't, I don't know what to say.
I think if it wasn't the, you know, I would hate to see that this become the responsibility of the state, of the estate, if it really isn't. Under, like, with the background information, I kind of feel like, you know, I wouldn't want to push that on someone, but that's my opinion.
What's the rest of council thinking? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, just one other thing. Again, based on the information that was provided in the package, I believe this is commercial property and it has tenants, so the tenants likely would have paid their share of the taxes to the estate, and the estate simply didn't remit to the town in time.
I'm not sure, Ms. Zanko, is this, I know he owned a house down my street. Is this business property or personal property or a combination?
Just one moment. I believe it is non-residential. Just one moment, please.
I would like to say that I was, I'm not a public trustee, but I was in charge of my mom and dad's estate, and I knew the taxes had to be paid, so.
Madam Mayor, it says in the letter that it is a commercial warehouse.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan.
In the what?
It is a
Thank you. So,
commercial warehouse.
Well, it says.
so that would mean it is non-residential.
Oh. Well, it says invested in multiple properties, both residential and commercial.
This particular request is specifically for the one property that would be commercial.
Okay. Okay, so council, what's your wish? Someone want to make a motion? Or you have more questions? Yes, Councillor Jessamine. I can't hear you.
There we go. Sorry. I make a motion that they're required to make the payment, just like any other estate that's managed. The expectations are that people pay their taxes. So that's my motion.
Okay. All in favor of that? Carried. Oh, sorry, opposed, if any? Carried. Ms. Beaton, did you get that motion? Okay, thank you. See, I can yell to her now. Okay, so 13.2, the RFD for public gatherings. I'm going to turn this over to Director of Community Services, Ruth Rolfe.
Thank you. So the next three requests for decisions from council are all on openings. So the first one, we're going to talk about amending the original resolution for some of our programs and events. So we're looking at operating an afternoon parks program, looking at operating our day camp once again, facilitating a parade, and having some discussion on the approval of yard sale events to be reinstated. We had up to this point suggested very strongly that they not be run. So starting with the day camps, because actually we're registered, we have very restrictive regulations with them reopening. We'll be using an 8:2 staff ratio. We've established protocols for drop-off and pickup. We've redone our entire handbook. Children and parents will be asked a series of questions on COVID-19 symptoms every day. So they'll have to wait in the parking lot. We'll have to go through a verbal screening. And at that point, we'll make arrangements for them to come at varied times and drop off their children. We also are working on at this moment prepping bins for individual children for each day's program so that we would have everything ready for the day. Our parks program, which we're looking at starting for June, just for one afternoon to kind of see how this is going to work. So we feel we'd be helping the children with socializing while maintaining that 6-foot distance. We've spoken with other municipalities to see what they're doing, and it's very, very mixed. A lot of them are not looking at running any parks programs or day camps at all. Some of them are looking at some really creative ways of doing things. One municipality we spoke with, they're having their day camps for 1 week is 6 to 7-year-olds, 1 week is 8 to 9, et cetera, so that they have totally different cohort groups and they can completely sanitize everything before the next cohort group. So that's a different way of doing things. We've talked to groups that are doing family events where they're taking preschools and the families, putting them all out in park type atmospheres and having art and yoga, different things like that within each little family, all separated by the 6 feet. So we're suggesting to go forward with what we're working on. So that's for the day camps. The other thing that we've talked about is garage sales. So up until this point, we've retained that guidelines that we shouldn't be running them, or that the residents shouldn't be running them. With looking at the guidelines for farmers markets, so that just opened up in phase 1. So if you go through the farmers markets guidelines, I really feel that those are similar guidelines that could be applied to yard sales. At this point, we haven't found anything specifically from the province. So that would be our suggestion, that we move forward with them. I think we could make up, get some messaging out. We can incorporate the province's messaging of distancing, hand sanitizing, and suggestions for people on how to operate safely. The last thing is our Canada Day Parade. We had agreed to cancel, or council had agreed to cancel Canada Day, but we felt that Protective Services felt they could still do a Canada Day Parade. They could increase the number of floats in it, increase like the streets that they run down so that people wouldn't have to gather in spots, but we could go down pretty much all the main streets. And so we would still have some sort of a celebration. We wouldn't throw out candy, we would follow all the guidelines. So yeah, so that's requesting a decision from council on those 3 things.
So the facilitating a parade, that would be the only Canada Day activity though?
Yes, it would. We've talked about doing things like perhaps like a yard window decorating type of a contest, but nothing as far as fireworks or get-togethers or anything along that lines.
Okay. Is there any questions? So your day camp, your park camp, Ruth, you said 1 day, but it says here starting the week of June and ending June 26th?
Right, so it would be like for one afternoon for 2 different age groups, so once a week. So one afternoon for the younger age group and one afternoon for the older age group. And then we would we'd have it outside in the parks, and then it would be open for, if the case there was a rain date, we would have like the opposite day we could run as a rain date. Okay.
Any questions? Yes, Councillor Jesselman.
I'm okay with the number of them, but I do have concerns with the yard sale. I mean, we have an opportunity to influence the other ones, like the day camp, and we can be a part of it. But I'm just nervous with yard sales. So we have no, well, I guess we can advise and give best practices, but there's no guarantee after that once these start popping up. And for me, a lot of times they're put on for fundraising for families. I know it's a difficult time and people may need that, but I just have concerns with the, typically the spaces are very tight. They're in driveways, they're also in garages. So concerned with the social distancing there. So that's, I just wanted to voice that. And I'm okay with the other ones. the practices that are put in place, I reviewed them. They're all very strong, and feel that they would be able to protect the town staff and the kids that would be there. But my concern is with yard sales, not allowing them.
Is there any other questions, concerns? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, I just forget if there was guidelines put out for things like farmers markets, Director Rolfe, and how they're going to deal with those.
Yes, there was guidelines put out for the farmers market as to how they would enforce that. It's really hard to say, but they didn't even address currency or anything within the guidelines. Basically, it was using, a single entrance, separate exits, having signage, putting spray paint on the grass or whatever so that people were staying apart. They're saying that food service was permitted. They suggested no social activities like singing or crafts or amusement face painting. Other than that, it was, they, of course, suggest that coughing and sneezing, proper etiquette and that sort of thing. But yeah, that was basically the guidelines they put out.
I'm just wondering if there's some way to adapt those guidelines from a farmer's market to yard sales. My concern, I agree with Councillor Jessamine, but my concerns would be multiple handling of items. So, they may sanitize, put everything out on a table. Someone comes along, picks it up, decides not to buy it, puts it back down, the next person comes along. So I was wondering how farmers markets were planning to deal with that.
I could say, that was why I put in the fact that that we should reinstate or we weren't putting out guidelines, but we're strongly suggesting for people not to have the yard sales. But with the guidelines that the province put out for the farmers market, to me they're fairly similar activities. So,
with the exception that there's more room at the farmers market. And I have a huge concern about currency, and multiple handlings as well, and small spaces. With the farmers market, they can at least control how many people go in there at a time. And I know that they're having a meeting, I can't remember which night it is, to discuss how they're going to set up. And that's basically, the town hall meetings have been, your customers best, you decide on how you're going to run it. So that's, to me, the farmers market and garage sales are two separate entities.
I agree.
Yes,
The other thing you do.
Go ahead, Terry.
Sorry, yeah, the other thing with the farmers market, they're organized and they have the director who oversees it and have no worries, and I'm pretty sure they will be there to enforce if that is required as well. So,
Councillor Anderson?
That's another.
Yeah. In the regulations with the farmers market, they're not allowed to handle the product either. They're only supposed to be able to point to what they want, and then the vendor packages it up. My biggest concern again is currency. I don't know how you get away from that or around that one. So, because none of them, or very few of them, are going to have a machine. So, and I'm not sure the machine's any cleaner than a dollar bill is, but.
I guess you launder your money in bleach and
there you go, put it through the washing machine. Yeah.
well, you have a pail of money that's been laundered, and then you dump the other money into another pail.
Yeah, I mean that would be I think the biggest concern, as long as they adhere to the other regulations about the customer not coming in and picking stuff up and looking at it, and they've got to be able to observe it without touch. So I struggle with the curbside or the garage sales, because I'm not sure it's enforceable in terms of keeping people from handling stuff. You're right, Terry, it's a confined space in a lot of cases. And lots of it is, you know, income or extra money for these families, which, you know, is bad. I mean, you know, it's required, but I'm not sure how you can regulate that one. I don't know. I don't know where you put the onus on. So.
Yeah, I just hate to see everything regulated to the nines, but in this case, we have to. You know, we have to ensure public safety.
I know that Fort Vermilion, or sorry, Mackenzie County has opened theirs wide open. It's on their Facebook page. Their garage sales are have at her. So they are going to be out there. So.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know. I don't know. I have no suggestions.
I guess to me, the only way that I guess the town could react to this if we wanted to go forward would to make sure the rules and regulations are posted on Facebook and whatever, wherever, Twitter, whatever we use it on. I don't know how you enforce it. I don't think our police force or, you know, Rodney or any of those should be running around making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But on the other hand, I don't know.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah, what we've done so far is just made a very strong recommendation to the public to avoid garage sales and yard sales, and the public's been quite compliant with that. The concerns of council are correct. It's not. It's more a request to the public than an enforcement issue, because it would probably, logistically, it would be almost impossible to enforce this.
Yeah. Well, I think we just continue encouraging the public not to have them yet. And that's as much as we can do. I mean, if they decide to have them, like you said, we cannot enforce it. Anybody else? Should we take that, like, I don't have a problem with the day camps, and like Terry said, the day camps. I'm still struggling with the parade because I know that we are going to be there, but I can't see the logistics of it. People are still going to congregate in spaces. You might still go down all the main streets, but are they going to stay apart? I don't know. I don't want to end up like Ontario's park. So,
Madam Mayor, if I may,
yes.
maybe what we could do is we could bring a plan forward for that parade and the logistics involved with it to the next council meeting, and you could just defer that decision till that time. That still gives almost a month before Canada Day.
Okay. So does anyone else agree with that, or?
That sounds good.
I'll make a motion for alternative one, but to remove the parade date of July 1st for further discussion.
And what about the yard sales?
I think we just hope that people are smart about it.
But the request says to approve yard sales within provincial guidelines.
Within provincial guidelines, so.
Do you want to put encourage not to have them?
Well, I think alternative one with the parade for review is my motion, Neil.
Okay. Any more discussion? Yes, Councillor Justman.
I can be a logistical nightmare to oversee or enforce that, but couldn't our peace officers do some extra patrolling, or just on their regular routes or routine, they could be on the lookout for yard sales and be a part of that, or no? Would that help?
I'm not certain what we would, other than asking people to shut them down again, because we're not in a state of local emergency. I don't know whether we've got any teeth to that enforcement.
Well, what do you like? People can be charged if they're not following the act. So I mean, who's laying those charges? Is it RCMP or is it the? We had a health inspector out the other day, and she was on site inspecting our facilities, and she came across some of our crews that were not social distancing, and she had a little discussion with them, and she advised that she could have called the RCMP to come and lay charges. So why couldn't we be doing that?
I guess we could lay charges under the Public Health Act, which I believe start at $1,200 a piece.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. The charges we have, I don't know if the RCMP have laid any charges. I don't believe so. Most of the public health charges have been laid by our community police or peace officers. If that's council's direction, we can definitely strive to check out yard sales as well.
So if the RCMP are laying charges, who's seeing them in court?
Sorry, I don't believe the RCMP have laid any charges under the Public Health Act.
Because apparently the courts aren't working either.
No. Any charges are delayed until the courts go back into session.
There were charges laid in the county. Our peace officers were at a scene in conjunction with the RCMP, and the RCMP laid charges with social distancing.
That was for an open campfire, wasn't it?
Yeah, in the Mackenzie County area, in Fort Vermilion area.
Question?
Yes.
I don't believe that we need to be heavy-handed, but if
Sorry, I just wanted to double check. Like, is there any mention of yard sales in stage 1 of the relaunch?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yes, Councillor Anderson.
I don't feel that we need to be heavy-handed, but if our people were to travel around and visit the odd yard sale and just kind of look around and make sure that they were doing what the recommendations were, they could make suggestions if need be. I really think people are going to look after themselves as best they can, and I'm not sure that we want to continue just to keep things shut down.
I don't think we want to be heavy-handed too, either. But I think our concern is the citizens and how this disease spreads. And this would be the perfect opportunity for it to spread if one person had COVID and other people were handling the same things. I agree with you. I think people can govern for themselves in this situation. I would just want the message out there. If you're going to have a yard sale, you have to follow some of those guidelines just to keep yourself safe and everybody else. Any more discussion? Yes.
Yeah. I would agree that I think we have to at some point see, if we can start getting back to normal. And I think a lot of people are going to be following the new normal of, some of the initiatives that have come out of this pandemic. I mean, I've operated 2 stores throughout the entire pandemic, and as much as we've implemented policies for, cleaning and sanitizing, like, you can't stop people from picking up items and putting them down, and you can't go by and clean every single item that somebody may have touched. Like, yet I think in general, the public is being good about this. So I don't see why a yard sale would be any different. And I would just hope that, maybe with a little bit of observation, I think that's all we can do. Like, at what point do you start to allow things to happen and maybe observe, but, and then make decisions afterwards if something, looks off. But we have to kind of start somewhere. So it's tough. We need to kind of make our way back, I think.
Well, and I think people will decide whether they're going to go to yard sales too. You can
Exactly. I think
you
we'll
can
find
have
like
one, but that
we're
doesn't
not
mean
going
the
to
people are going to come.
right. We're not going to have massive gatherings just because somebody's having a yard sale because you know it looks like an event. I don't think. I think people are going to be cautious, and I think they'll also be cautious if they attend one. So so I'd like to again not lay too heavy a hand down on this.
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I agree, Councillor Anderson's recommendation probably covers it. This gives administration latitude to make further decisions without coming back to council by staying within provincial guidelines. If the province was to come out with guidelines on these specific types of public events, as long as people are complying with those, it should be fine.
But the government says 50 people. Can you imagine 50 people in your garage?
Yeah, but the government also says 6 feet for social distancing. And
I know, that's what I mean.
It says 50 people outdoors, not indoors. You're indoors in a garage, so.
But the biggest thing these days, yeah.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. So I'll call the motion again. It's for everything other than the parade, which we will review next council meeting. So who's in favor of that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who's opposed? Me. All right, carried. Oh, I thought that was Sandra. Okay, so 13.3 is the opening of the museum and the town hall, and I will call on Director of Community Services, Ruth Rolfe, again.
Thank you for that, Mayor. So hopefully these are going to get easier, but I don't think so.
Big Brother's watching.
Yes, yes. So there was some specific guidelines. The museums were part of the relaunch. There wasn't very clear directions on some of the other buildings. So administration is requesting that we open the museum for 3 days a week, that we open up the town hall as of June 1st or a date thereafter to be determined, because it would take us a while to go through with incorporate all the health and safety that's required. The library remains closed until phase 2, and the senior center to remain closed until phase 2. So for our museum guidelines, the recommended formula for the maximum number of people in the building is based on 10 square meters per person to allow for social distancing. So that really doesn't allow for very many people at our museum and visitor information center. So we thought with being the shorter hours and a few days a week, we could gauge how we're able to actually implement the guidelines and still be able to offer the public a museum experience. We'll be allowing a maximum of 8 people in the building plus our staff. But if there were 2 cohort families that were together, then up to a maximum of 15. We're also looking at taking registrations for bookings on days that we were not open, so that we could tour the displays, because we have that fantastic display that's just been completed, and we want to really allow people in our community the opportunity to go and see that display. I guess that's it for the museum. The other thing I would mention too is the other reason for the partial 3 days a week is our borders are still closed. The other half of our museum is a visitor information center, so with the Northwest Territories and BC not really allowing the visitors back and forth, I think there's going to be a huge pressure, like we might normally see, to be open. Some of the other specifics we'll be doing is having the plastic front sanitation centers and putting all our goods that are for sale back behind the glass and that sort of thing. For our own building, we have a huge document attached that our health and safety have been working on and as part of developing the relaunching guidelines. That includes a letter to the public saying that there's you'd be asked as the public when you come in if you're showing any symptoms. You'd be asked to sanitize. Again, we'd have the guards in place at town, the plastic guards in front of the town staff. Some of the other changes would be additional cleaning procedures and signage. And I already mentioned that for our programs, there would be pre-screening for participants. For the libraries, there was specific in that they'd open in phase 2 of the relaunch, as was the seniors, their suggestion for phase 2 of the relaunch. So we're looking for a decision from council.
So Ruth, and I missed this, but was the relaunch for seniors, was it for all senior activities or seniors in a facility?
There wasn't anything specific to seniors in a facility. It did say in the relaunch that not until phase 2 did they suggest that the vulnerable population, which is seniors, that they start getting back to their regular interactions and activities. So that was suggested in phase 2, which would be right now is slated for June 19th.
Right.
So another 2-3 weeks, and then looking at being more active and back to what you normally do.
Okay. Is there any other questions? I have a question about the relaunch in the town hall. Are we installing plexiglass at our front counter or?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And also, we're increasing janitorial so that the janitorial staff will be cleaning twice a day.
Well, we asked that to our health and safety, and they said if not, it would be staff. So, for instance, the main program that would be running would be the children coming in from the parks program. So our staff would be coming in with the children, sanitizing the countertops and that kind of thing. So I think we would be able to follow up from that extra use within our internal staff.
Okay. Okay, is there any other questions? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
So I think that with the museum and the town, that we can definitely control what's going on in those situations better than what we were just talking about. So I have no problem with those steps being taken.
Is there any other questions? Okay, can I have a resolution then?
I'll move alternative 1.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. So the next one is the reopening of playground equipment. And it is a very good guide that the health and safety have put out for the town specifically.
Pass that on to the appropriate personnel.
What's that?
I said we'll pass that on to the appropriate personnel. It's not a very exciting job, I don't think, doing health and safety and manuals like that. So nice to know they're appreciated.
So the next one is to you as well, Ruth, on the opening of the playground.
Yeah, so this is one of the most difficult ones, I feel. The government provided guidelines that said it's up to the municipality. So I did have discussion with some of my municipal park cohorts, and at that point, which was just last week, they took a poll and 75% of the municipalities said they were waiting for phase 2 to open their park ground equipment. And the ones that were open had developed a sanitizing schedule and procedures for the park equipment. And following that, I had information sent to me from the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association, and I had looked into cleaning of the equipment and safe work practices. But ironically, the next day on the news, a lot of the larger municipalities had opened up their equipment. One of the things that definitely needs to be done if we do look at opening up the equipment is I have attached some signage. This was one of the signage that another municipality had used that basically says makes it very clear the equipment is not sanitized and that it's up to each person to sanitize their children's hands before and after the use of the equipment. I have suggested that we don't open park equipment until phase 2. Part of that is because it's one of the most multi-touch surfaces. However, I do recognize, being a recreation professional, the importance of outdoor playgrounds and large motor skills and getting your children out there. But I think it's really difficult to encourage social distancing on playground equipment. One of the other municipalities that we spoke to are using town staff as park patrols. So they can't really affect any compliance, but they can make sure people are aware of social distancing and noting trends and that sort of thing. So my recommendation is we either wait until phase 2, which is about the 3rd week in June, or we definitely have to have signs out there making it very, very clear that that we are not cleaning our equipment.
So what would the reopening in phase 2, what would be different, do you think?
Well, I'm thinking by then we might know what's happening with our first phase here. It hasn't actually been 14 days, it's been 10 days since we first opened everything up. We're in one of the regions where right now there was a fair high number of COVID cases. I think it would give us a clear idea of where we were at. And I think that's the same thing why things are in the phase 2 of the relaunch, is to give the government a chance to see what's happened with phase 1. And they have repeatedly said that the next phase won't go forward unless they see that there hasn't been an increased number of cases with phase 1.
Okay. Council? Okay, so Ruth, on the sanitization, where it says that the play structures have not been sanitized and all users must sanitize their hands before and after. So on that signage, do we as a municipality supply the sanitizer, or are they expected to bring their own?
I wouldn't suggest in this community that having sanitization stands would necessarily be
A good thing?
The most appropriate thing to do. I think the onus should be placed on the parents. I'm sure everybody, you're like myself, you have the hand sanitizer that you're carrying around, extra one here and there. I'm sure they have them with their kids when they go out and wash their hands before and after. So we want to ensure that it's being used appropriately for the appropriate use.
Yeah, the only concern that I would have then is there are a lot of kids that go to the park without parents. So I'm with you, like they're huge touch surfaces, and maybe we should wait for my opinion, that we should wait for the second phase.
I feel that way also. We should wait till the second phase.
Terry?
I was just going to make a motion that we follow alternative 1, that we wait to the second phase.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay, I'll call the question then. Recommendation 1, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those opposed? 2. Carried. 13.4 is feedback that we received upon the design of the multi-use facility. Ms. Rolfe.
Hey, so I just want to go a little bit, go through the public consultation that we did and the survey that we received. So we did have 338 responses on our survey, which I feel is very significant data representative of our population. When we look at the number of people in each age group, the highest age groups were the 30 to 39 years and 0 to 9. Now that was because we had everybody fill out like how many kids were in each age group and that sort of thing. So total of all the people represented was 1,183, which is some large families, it looks like. When we asked how often would you use these facilities, what kind of stood out is the indoor pool definitely stood out, indoor track, and the curling rink showed as being not used that much. What was really nice to see is everything was relatively positive, and you all have all the comments in long form. But the one question was, are there any components of the proposed conceptual design that you feel should be changed? And 70% agreed with it. And then people really did take some time and write down what they felt that should be changed. When we asked, considering the needs of your household, indicate your level of agreement with the components being added, it's funny how surveys go, because if I took all the agrees and the strongly agrees, there wasn't much difference from one component to another. If I just looked at the strongly agrees, that's where we really saw a difference. So if we just looked at strongly agree, we saw a fitness center, gymnasium, indoor playground, indoor ice, indoor track, the leisure aquatics and multi-purpose room really stood out. And some of the things that were quite lower in rating would have been a curling rink, performing arts, squash, dance studio, that sort of thing. Insofar as the perspective of your household, how would the town and region benefit? It was really rewarding. Like I would say just about everybody chose everything from opportunities for new programs to attraction of new residents. And only 10 responses said that I do not think the community would benefit. So I think council should feel pretty confident that it looks like the community is pretty much behind us. So it was already mentioned earlier that administration met with the Fort Million School Division. Actually, in the mayor's letter, it was in there, the mayor's report. There's also been discussions with Denny Toff. So we're looking at just a slightly different motion to move forward, that the administration proceed with the engineering design of the Regional Emergency Center multi-use facility based on the conceptual design and take into consideration public input if feasible.
Is there any questions of council? So I would just, I don't know how, because I didn't do the survey. I don't know how it was prefaced in the on the survey, but some people are concerned about tax rates and what will happen with tax rates. These are all things that we have not entered into yet, but be aware that we are looking for grants from the provincial government and the federal government. And the 61 million is all in at a large cost. So it's not like the town is going to put out the $61 million. We are hoping for grants from both of our different governments. And we also have different partners that we are hoping will put in money into the facility as well. So I just want the public that are listening to be aware of that. Right now, we are just going into a design phase. Anybody else want to say anything? All right, who wants to make a motion? Councillor Welke.
I'll make the motion that administration proceed with the engineering design of the Regional Emergency Center multi-use facility based on the conceptual design and take into consideration public input where feasible.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. And I want to thank the public for participating in our online survey. It is very nice to see that many people engaged. All right. The RFD for land use bylaw is 13.6. And I will turn it over to, I guess, CAO Clark McCaskill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'll address this issue. So, as council's aware, we're looking at some significant changes to the land use bylaw and a fairly large rewrite. The council's had the opportunity to look at that initial work, and it's our feeling that the scope of changes or the scope of review of the land use bylaw that we're looking at, that be spread over several months to allow it to be looked at in pieces and in digestible chunks, for lack of a better term. But there were 3 items that stood out in our review that we would like council to consider amending the current bylaw to allow, and that's some of that is because of pending summer, some of it's because of the situation we're in, and some of it is because of what we have encountered. So the 3 changes we are asking council to consider is to look at changing our notification requirements to allow an electronic notification for development and planning changes or amendments and permits, as well as that in the newspaper. And some of that is to allow for more timely advertising of development permits, but some of it's also to take into account the closures or the holidays that the newspaper is entitled to have. And that allows us to process the development permits in a more timely manner. The second thing we would like to consider is under the current land use bylaw, a development permit is required for all swimming pools, regardless of the size or the depth of those pools. When that was put in, our belief is that the concern or the requirement for the development permit was based on a concern for child trespass. In other words, that the pools be contained within a fenced area that has a locking gate. What we're suggesting is that we remove the requirement for the development permit as long as the fencing requirements are met. Most of the pools that you buy anymore are CSA approved. The town can't improve upon that safety aspect, but from a land use point of view, requiring a 2-meter fence with a locking gate for any pool placed in a yard should be the main consideration. And the last thing that we're looking at is opening up the use of shipping containers to all zoning, to be used as storage, garages, workshops, whatever. There would be a limit of 1 in any residential area, and in any area, the shipping containers would have to be altered if necessary to meet the surrounding aesthetics of the neighborhood or the zoning. So those are the 3 items we're asking council to consider. We're also suggesting to allow us to put these out to get public feedback, that the council set a public hearing date of June 22nd.
Does our current land use bylaw allow for shipping containers in residential area?
No, currently the land use bylaw only allows shipping containers in highway, commercial, and industrial. That's the requirement then for screening or for aesthetic alteration in the residential area.
So those ones that are in our residential right now, are they non-compliant?
They're either non-conforming or they're illegally.
So we're not going to grandfather those in, are we?
Well, some of them may have been in. We'd have to take a look on each individual basis. Some of them may have been there before the land use bylaw forbade them. But what we would do is work with those landowners. If this passes, we'd work with those landowners just to meet the requirements of the new or the changes to the bylaw.
Okay. Any questions?
I have one.
Councillor Welke.
For the fence requirements for a pool, all fences shall have, oh, okay. I just wanted to clarify, I think, Clark, you had mentioned a locking gate, but it does say in the bylaw a self-latching, and a lock mechanism. Okay, so does that mean it has to latch and lock, basically, like it?
So it would require a self-latching gate, but also the ability to be locked when it's unattended.
Okay. Okay. That's actually a quite difficult task to secure a gate from both, like residential gates from both sides. But no, that's good clarification. Also, I think there's a spelling error. Can I point that out?
Absolutely.
In section 5.10.4, item B on page 152, that the shipping containers not be permitted in front yards, side and rear yards only, I believe it should say.
Oh, yes, it should. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, did you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, maybe I should have cued into this when we were told that we had done a reformatting of the existing bylaw, but given what we reviewed at committee of whole, I guess I was under the impression that we were doing a complete rewrite as opposed to continuing to amend the current land use bylaw. So are we just gonna sort of keep amending it in smaller chunks as we go forward, or are we doing a complete rewrite ultimately?
Madam Mayor, any other, the reason we're bringing these changes forward is because of the current circumstance. We've seen an increase in the number of swimming pools going in. We just want to make sure people are putting them in and making sure they're fenced properly. Because again, of the COVID situation, I think a lot of people are looking at the recreation within their own backyards. The CCAN is just to allow that to be ready for this summer and allow people to be able to create those storage containers and have them altered before the winter. And the notification is stuff we're encountering again because of the COVID situation. So no, Mr. Deputy Mayor, our intention is only to put these three forward. All other alterations would wait until we will be sort of rolled out, but directed toward the complete rewrite of the land use bylaw.
Okay, that was my question. I thought it was completely appropriate given the timeline and the situation for these. I'm just looking forward to the future process that if we're gonna amend piecemeal on each issue or other than urgent matters like this, that we'll just review all of them and then roll it out as a complete new document at the end for public input.
Yes, my apologies. That is our intention.
I'll move the recommendation.
Are you making that motion?
Yes, I believe I said I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor of first reading? Carried. 14.1 correspondence for action. This is declaration for Seniors Week, which is June 1st to the 7th. So can I have a motion to declare that Seniors Week? Councillor Anderson, all in favor?
Motion. Yep.
All in favor? Carried.
Me and I'm a senior.
Me and you both. I see Ellis hasn't bought in yet. All right, correspondence for information. Could I have someone accept for information?
I'll move that for you.
Councillor Jessamine. Sorry, he had his hand up. All in favor? Carried. Could I have a motion to move in camera, please? Councillor Morgan, all in favor? Carried.